Hello, Sarah.
Hey, how are you? All right.
So, Sarah, I'll introduce you to Mike. He
Right.
is an amazing tax specialist here in Southern California, and
Mm.
his, kind of wheelhouse is property. So, he's very good with helping people to navigate through their taxes when it comes to owning property or multiple properties, which is how I got introduced to him. So, one of
Right.
the things I wanted to ask you, Sarah, about this is I don't know like about taxes from the Jamaica side. Is that like something that Americans have to pay more over there, or is it just everybody pays the same amount of taxes no matter what your
Right. Well, everybody pretty much pays the same. I don't know how it's treated from the US side. But
nationality?
here there's no tax on capital gains. So
Okay.
um there are some other taxes that are involved with the transfer of the property title to the new owner.
Hmm.
So transfer tax that's paid by the seller, and
Okay.
have stamp duty and a registration fee, which those costs are split 50-50 between the buyer and the seller.
Okay. Okay.
Right.
All right. And then
Uh, and then in addition to that, of course, you have, your closing costs, your deposit, and yeah, that's pretty much it in terms of the taxes on property here. Once you own the property, then you have an annual property tax that you have to pay. But generally, it's not excessive.
sure. And like
Yeah.
here in the US, like or Orange County, our property tax rate is usually like 1.1 to 1.3%. Do you have any ideas like what that is in
Mm.
Jamaica? Their like percentages?
Um, do you mean percentage of the sale price, you mean?
Yeah, that's what we usually do. Like we'll pay property taxes based off of our sale price of our property.
Right, right. Well, how it's charged, how the government charges it here is on the land value, so the unimproved land value. So
Okay.
it doesn't really go off of what buildings are constructed on the property itself, which is why it's much lower than you might expect,
Right,
the,
exactly.
the unimproved value.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Mike, from the US side, it sounds like Jamaica, if you sell a property in Jamaica, you wouldn't get any capital gains tax. When
So here's what happens. It depends on whether or not you're a US citizen. That's how it's taxed. So assuming that the buyers are US citizens or green card holders, because a lot of people have come from other countries, say Italy, they now
Mhm.
have a green card in America. So then America charges them on worldwide income.
Right, right.
So a property in Jamaica under one of the international treaties, it's very favorable tax treatment. It gets treated as though it was an American property for the most part.
Right.
So the individuals would just file their same tax return here. They would file the Schedule E, using Edward, if they were um, taking it as a rental property.
Mhm.
The and then it would just go on their tax return. Now, one of the advantages is if they wind up paying some Jamaica taxes,
Mhm.
they get a credit in the US for the taxes they paid in Jamaica.
Oh,
So
nice.
if you wound up paying $2,500, let's say in Jamaica,
Mhm.
Mhm.
then any tax attributable to that property in America would get a $2,500 credit for the taxes that have already been paid to the Jamaican government.
Oh,
Okay.
okay.
The
That's
only
nice.
You have double taxing.
Right. The only real difference in owning a property in Jamaica as a rental versus in America is the depreciation schedule in America would be 27 and a half years for depreciation. In Jamaica, it would be 40 years.
Mhm.
Okay, okay.
So it lowers the depreciation a little bit.
Mhm. So they can't put down as much, but it goes for longer. That's interesting though.
Mhm.
And then, so I'm just curious, Sarah, when you are working with people that are coming from other countries and things like that, is like, could you kind of like explain how you take somebody in? Like, I know we had that person that was sending messages on our YouTube from UK, and then I think we had another one from, oh gosh, I don't even remember what country it was. But yeah, like, so how does that work? Do they come in and look at properties, or do you do virtual FaceTime tours, or how are you guys acting it with COVID right now and getting properties sold?
Well, that's a good question. What I have personally been doing is a lot more detailed virtual tours of properties. So
Mm-hmm.
in that way, that helps to eliminate the amount of time that somebody would have to physically spend coming to the country to view, and they can narrow down their search
Mm-hmm.
before they decide to make a trip. So our borders are still open. So it's still possible for people to fly here to come and view properties.
Okay.
Of course, there are some protocols in place where quarantining is required, and a negative test is required before leaving the country.
Okay.
And then, but what I understand that people would want to lessen the amount of time that they have to spend, and
Mm-hmm.
so this helps to sort of help narrow down the number of properties that they would look at when they come. Some people are comfortable with buying without physically coming, but
That's what I was going to ask. Can somebody buy 100% virtual?
yes, people can, but I mean, obviously there's always some risk involved, and I mean, everybody would prefer to see in person if it's possible. But
Mm-hmm.
I know of people, once they've established a good relationship with their realtor, or if they have a family member in the country, or even just a good friend who they can trust, then
Mm-hmm.
they're open to even having the person go to the property on their behalf with their phone, or whatever, to just sort of walk through and have them look and ask questions and so on. So I'm doing that as well as at the moment, and I'm pleased to say that my sales haven't really been impacted, um, thankfully.
I found the same thing here in the US, which is also interesting because I thought for
Is it?
sure sales were going to get impacted, but they did for like 1 month over here. And my vacation rentals, like they were fully booked and then they went boop, but only for a month. And now it's, yeah, I think, are you finding that people are moving because now that they had to quarantine, they realized that this wasn't the right house for them?
Um, well, I think by and large, most places here tend to have quite a bit of outdoor space, even if it's just a common area in an apartment complex.
Mhm.
So um, I don't think we have that same pressure as in other urban centers where people are living in really tight spaces.
Right.
Um, what I have seen is that there definitely has been an impact on tourism here, and the number of visitors to the island.
Mhm.
So the hotels have definitely been feeling it negatively, and the Airbnb rentals have also seen a decline.
Mhm.
However, I think people are more keen on renting an Airbnb if they do come to Jamaica rather than going to a hotel, because it's just a much more controlled environment. So
Right.
you have less people to interact with.
And speaking of Airbnb, when we met at the International Real Estate Conference in 2019, that was something that Jamaica was really trying to figure out how to deal with Airbnb and grasp that and tax that and all that kind of stuff. So, has anything new kind of unfolded on that level?
Yeah. Well, from the taxation standpoint, nothing has really changed. But what has, well, the government is working on a temporary residency program, which would allow people a 1 year option to stay in the country. So that I think will have a good, a positive outcome for people who want to work remotely.
That's what I was going to say. I'd go work virtually there for a year. What about you, Mike?
Yeah.
Sign me up. I'm ready to go right now.
Right, right. So previously, foreigners and tourists could come to the island for 3 months, and then if they wanted to extend their stay, they could do that up to 6 months. But then they would have to return to, their home. But now with this program, it will allow people up to a year basically to stay without having to worry about any immigration status or that sort of thing.
Okay.
And I have a question about that. So once they leave, how long is it before they can come back and start a new year?
That I will have to double check. I don't think it's that long of a period, but I can double check that for sure.
I like the way you think, Mike. We come
Yeah.
back to the US and work for a month and then go back for another year.
Exactly. April, come to America, finish up all the tax returns, and then go back to Jamaica. I
Right.
mean,
Yeah,
best of both worlds.
that would be lovely. And then, so Mike, is there any other just things that people should know when they're buying property when it comes to tax terms outside of the US that tips that you want to tell them?
Well, the big things, and they're just more from a legal standpoint. I'm not an attorney, but I can tell you that the big deals are to make sure that you get appropriate title, you get title insurance, because frequently you don't spend a lot of time there. You need to make sure that it's in the right area, the right, demographics around what you're looking for. And then it's pretty much like buying a property in America. I guess you'd say probably location, location, location again.
Yes.
And tax wise, very, very similar treatment. But I will put a caveat on. We have just had an election here in America.
Okay.
So we're a little concerned, but it doesn't appear that property in general be taxed different. The biggest thing regarding property is that there's rumors that he would like to eliminate 1031 exchange
Ooh,
options.
that would be.
Now, that could be a big problem.
Yeah.
Now, one of the rules that's really important to remember is that a 1031 exchange has to happen domestically for domestic property. If you're outside the US, an exchange has to be with a property outside the US. However, there's no country restriction. So you could go from Jamaica to, say, Costa Rica or Belize, and those 1031s would hold up just fine. You just can't take a foreign property and exchange it for a domestic property or a domestic for a foreign.
So
Okay.
is it 1031? Is that the name of the form, or I'm not sure what?
So a 1031 exchange refers to the code section of the US tax code that talks about being able to take a like kind property, so rental property for another rental property, and you can avoid capital gains tax if there's an increase in value by simply rolling it into the next property. Now, one of the things that Biden's also talking about is eliminating the stepped up basis benefit. So that could be a problem as well for people inheriting properties that have highly appreciated, whether they're in the US or internationally.
Right. And I don't know that for Sarah, 1031s would be so relevant if you guys don't have a capital gains tax when you sell. Like that's basically what people have the 1031 here in the US to kind of avoid that capital gains tax and still be encouraged to continue to expand upon their real estate portfolio. But
Right.
yeah, it would be sad if those go away because I definitely help investors do that every single year, a few times.
Huge. There, I mean, I
Mhm.
have clients in 17 states and 5 foreign countries, and a lot of them in 17 states are because they've exchanged properties from California to Utah to Idaho to Florida lately, Texas. They've exchanged their office buildings primarily, and then they've also then relocated to those other areas.
Yeah,
So if that gets eliminated, could be an issue,
yeah. I want
right?
to get to back to Montego Bay for a second, Sarah, and just ask you about property prices there right now, because one of the things that fascinated me was, with all my international travels, Jamaica was the only place that would give foreigners loans.
Yes.
And yeah, so can you speak a little bit about how much a property would cost in Jamaica, how much people would have to put down
Right.
if they wanted to actually move forward with something over there?
Sure, sure. Well, that still applies in terms of loans being offered to foreign buyers.
Mhm.
Each bank has, their different rates, but generally, for US currency mortgages, you can expect interest rates of between 4 to 5%. If you're getting the mortgage in the local Jamaican currency, then it would be a little higher, between 8 to 9% typically. So, as I said, that still applies for foreign buyers. In addition to that, the required deposit or payment, as we call it, would be anywhere between 5% to 30% of the purchase price. But that would typically amount that the bank will willing to lend you. So for example, if they're going to lend you 70% of the cost, then you would be expected to come up with the other 30%. But as I said, it ranges depending on which bank you choose.
Mhm.
And then in terms of the closing costs, typically it is more cost effective to do a cash purchase. But in the event that you are purchasing via mortgage, then you can typically expect the costs to amount to anywhere between 15% to um, 40% of the sale price. So the cash outlay would be, quite large depending on how much financing you actually get. Whereas with a cash purchase, the cost would be a lot less. So you'd be looking at maybe between 10 to 15% overall cash outlay. That would include the down payment and all the associated closing costs.
Okay. And then do you guys have like in the US they have the you know, uh, lenders have regulations so that they have to give like a good faith estimate up front and things like that. So
Mhm.
within 3 days of applying for the loan, everybody knows how much their closing costs are going to be and things like that. Do you
Right,
guys have any kind of practices like that where people don't get surprised at the end?
right, definitely. Well, what I personally do with all my buyers is I provide them with an estimated cash outlay sheet, which pretty much lists all the expected costs. And it gives them a maximum so that, they don't feel nervous about what they're expected to come up with at the end of the day. And then the banks as well, they also do a similar thing where they give you a breakdown of all the costs that they expect. And so you don't go into it feeling, totally clueless.
Right. Yeah. And I guess that's one of the things that I wonder about too is like, in the States, we usually have an escrow company. We'll put our good faith deposit into escrow and it takes 30 days for all the paperwork to go back and forth and the signatures to come and go. And then the title company, closes the property for us. How does it work in Jamaica? Is it similar?
It's different in that we don't have title companies in the same way, but lawyers or attorneys handle the conveyancing, which is the transfer of the title from the old owner to the new owner. And so when a deposit is made, it's usually put in the attorney's escrow account. So in that sense, there's some similarity. But I know in the US, you're typically used to the realtor or the agent handling the entire process, the entire sale transaction. But in Jamaica, the lawyer handles that side of it. So basically, we are responsible for, helping the buyer to find the right property and then assisting them with the offer. And once it goes to contract, then it's in the lawyers or the attorney's court.
And some states do that. Just California uses escrow companies. So I always like to ask, just because I think there's a lot of people that are probably thinking about it and pondering it and saying, wow, I wouldn't mind, putting 30% down and buying a property in Jamaica. But sometimes those little I don't knows will cause them, not to pick up the phone and call you. But
30% down would probably be the max. But I just wanted to give you the full range so that you could understand, it can be anywhere from 5 to 30%, but it just depends on the particular situation.
Mm-hmm. I saw you posted a condo on Instagram the other day. That particular one, I didn't catch the price of that one, but what would if somebody wanted to get a condo, would they be able to put 5% down or?
Again, it really would depend on if they're doing a cash purchase or if they're going through one of the banks and then what the banks are offering them. And then the banks do their own assessment, their credit score, background, and so on to see how feasible it is for them to lend them, the maximum amount.
Okay.
But that particular property, I think you're referring to Dream 36, which is a new development. It's 36 apartments, and the starting price is 220,000 US for a one-bedroom apartment.
Okay.
And that's about 850 square feet. So it's quite a decent size for a one bedroom.
Okay. Do you happen to know how much the 2 bedrooms in that community go for?
The 2 bedrooms in that particular building have already sold out. But they range from, I think, between 380 upwards. So it just depends also on which floor, because the higher floors have a better sea view, and all those things come into it. But even if it's not that particular condo building, we do have other properties available.
Okay, wonderful. Well, I'll be sure to put all of your contact info out there on this so that people can get in touch with you. If any other comments or questions, then we can find experts and record more videos, right? And hopefully I'll be able to come there in person and record it again.
We
The
love
last video looked very nice when you guys were on the beach talking about the properties.
I know, that one's got a lot of watches, Sarah, and I think that it has to do with, that lovely wave background and how much good info you have, because people are truly interested in buying in Jamaica. So, well, wonderful. Thank you guys so much for your time today, and I will be in touch.
Great.
Thank you. We'll see you later.
Great one. Bye.